The Unexpected Guardian. The Muriel exploration vessel Eternal Harmony glided silently through the void, its crystalline hull refracting starlight in shimmering patterns. Ambassador Tholos stood on the observation deck, his 4 arms folded in contemplation as he watched his crew of scientists and explorers work. The Muriel had traversed the galaxy for 3,000 cycles, spreading knowledge and establishing peaceful relations with dozens of species. Their philosophy of harmonious existence had served them well. "Ambassador, we've located the source of the energy signature," announced Chief Scientist Neri, her skin shifting to an excited violet hue. "It appears to be an artificial structure of unknown origin." Tholos nodded, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence, a gesture of approval. "Excellent. Prepare a research team. Remember our protocols. Observe, document, and respect." The Eternal Harmony approached a massive asteroid field where, nestled among the tumbling rocks, floated an ancient structure unlike anything the Muriel had encountered. Its surface was covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. The design was neither organic like Muriel architecture, nor purely functional like that of the Verdani. It was something else entirely, both beautiful and unsettling. "Initial scans indicate it's approximately 50,000 years old," reported Neri. "And it's active. Somehow." Tholos felt a tremor of excitement. First contact with a new species was always momentous, but discovering artifacts from long-vanished civilizations carried its own special significance. "Launch the research shuttles. I want full spectral analysis and—" A sudden alarm cut through his instructions. The ship's sensors had detected a massive energy spike from the artifact. Before anyone could react, a pulse of violet energy erupted from the structure, washing over the Eternal Harmony. "Systems failing," cried the navigation officer as the ship's lights flickered. "Propulsion offline. Communication arrays damaged. Send a distress signal to the Muriel Concord," ordered Tholos, maintaining the calm demeanor expected of an ambassador. "Request immediate assistance." The message was sent, but what happened next defied all expectations. Just 20 minutes after their distress call, space itself seemed to tear open in a controlled rupture unlike any jump point the Muriel had ever witnessed. From this wound in reality emerged a vessel that sent shivers through Tholos's 4 hearts. Where Muriel ships were elegant and translucent, designed to communicate peaceful intentions through their very form, this newcomer was the opposite. Angular, armored, and bristling with what could only be weapon systems, it approached with purposeful speed. Its hull was marked with unfamiliar symbols and what appeared to be battle scars. "Unknown vessel approaching," announced the sensor operator, her skin paling to a fearful white. "Configuration suggests a warship." Warships were practically mythical to the Muriel. Their species had evolved beyond warfare thousands of cycles ago. The few aggressive species they'd encountered had been primitive, their threat easily neutralized through shields and diplomatic skill. This ship was neither primitive nor diplomatic in its design. "They're hailing us," said the communications officer. Tholos steadied himself. "Open the channel." The view screen illuminated with the image of a bipedal being. Its skin was a rich brown, with no color-shifting capabilities that Tholos could discern. 2 eyes, 1 set of arms, and curious darkened patches of fur above those eyes. The being wore a fitted uniform with insignia suggesting hierarchy. "Muriel vessel, this is Captain Ilara Chen of the United Earth Alliance vessel Aegis. We received your distress call. What is your situation?" Tholos blinked rapidly in confusion. "You received our distress call? That's not possible." It was encoded for Muriel receivers only. The human's lips curved upward slightly. "We maintain monitoring stations throughout this sector. Your signal was intercepted and decoded. We were the closest vessel able to respond." Monitoring stations. Tholos felt his skin involuntarily shift to a concerned yellow. "This region is unclaimed space, designated for peaceful exploration only, which is precisely why we monitor it. Captain Chen replied smoothly. But perhaps we should focus on your current situation. Our scans indicate your propulsion systems are offline, and that structure is emitting increasingly powerful energy pulses. May we offer assistance? Before Tholos could respond, Neri interrupted urgently. Ambassador, the artifact is emitting a new type of signal. It appears to be a beacon. A beacon for what? Tholos asked. The answer came not from his crew, but from the human captain, whose expression had darkened. That's a precursor key, and it's just sent an activation signal that will attract the Void Reavers. You need to get your people out of this system immediately. Void Reavers? Precursor key? I don't understand. There's no time to explain fully, said Captain Chen. In approximately 3 hours, this space will be swarming with entities that consider all biological life to be nothing more than raw material. We can tow your vessel to safety, but we need to begin immediately. Tholos felt the weight of command pressing upon him. The human's vessel was clearly designed for war, something the Miriel had philosophically rejected millennia ago. Yet the conviction in the human's voice was unmistakable. How do you know of these Void Reavers? He asked. A shadow passed over Captain Chen's face. We've fought them before, lost colonies to them. Now, will you accept our assistance or not? With reluctance born of necessity, Tholos agreed. The Aegis extended energy tethers to the disabled Miriel vessel and began pulling it away from the artifact. As they retreated, Tholos was invited aboard the human ship to discuss their situation. The interior of the Aegis was as functional as its exterior suggested, where Miriel ships featured living spaces designed to nurture harmony and contemplation. This vessel was clearly built for efficiency and survival. Crew members moved with purposeful precision, their actions coordinated like a complex machine. In the command center, Captain Chen displayed detailed scans of the artifact. This is a precursor key, one of several scattered throughout this galactic arm. They were created by a species that vanished over 100,000 years ago. When activated, they transmit signals through subspace that attract the Void Reavers. And these Void Reavers are? We don't know if they're machines, evolved entities, or something else entirely. What we do know is they harvest organic material, living beings, to create more of themselves. They're drawn to precursor technology like predators to blood. Tholos felt his skin shift to a troubled gray. If what you say is true, why haven't the Miriel encountered these entities before? We've explored vast regions of space. You've been fortunate, said Captain Chen simply. Humanity wasn't so lucky. Our first extrasolar colony was wiped out by them. 17,000 lives lost before we understood what we were facing. A tactical officer approached. Captain, long-range sensors are detecting subspace disturbances. Estimated time of arrival, 2 hours, 17 minutes. Chen nodded grimly. Prepare all defense systems. Alert the crew to battle stations. She turned to Tholos. Ambassador, I suggest your people remain in your vessel's central compartments. We'll extend our shields around you, but if containment fails, you intend to fight these creatures? Tholos asked, incredulous. Just one ship against what sounds like a devastating force. The Aegis was designed specifically for this threat, Chen replied. We're a Reaver hunter. But yes, ideally we'd have a battle group. Unfortunately, you've got just us. Over the next hour, Tholos watched in fascination and horror as the humans prepared for combat. Weapon systems were charged, defensive arrays calibrated, and crew members donned what appeared to be neural interface devices that connected them directly to their stations. Your species seems remarkably adapted for warfare, Tholos observed. Captain Chen's expression was unreadable. Adaptation is what humans do best, Ambassador. When faced with a threat, we either overcome it or die trying, usually the former. The tactical display suddenly flared with multiple alerts. Subspace ruptures forming, announced the sensor officer. Multiple signatures, count 17. No, 23 entities emerging. On the main view screen, Tholos witnessed the arrival of the Void Reavers. Their vessels, if they could be called that, were asymmetrical constructions of dark metal and what appeared to be ossified organic material. They moved with unnatural precision, immediately orienting toward the precursor key. "They haven't detected us yet," Chen said quietly. "Weapons status. All systems green, Captain. Targeting solutions locked. On my mark." Chen's fingers tapped a sequence on her command console. "Ambassador, you might want to hold on to something." Fire. The Aegis erupted with energy as multiple weapon systems discharged simultaneously. Beams of concentrated plasma, projectiles surrounded by gravitational distortion fields, and swarms of what appeared to be autonomous attack drones launched toward the unsuspecting Void Reavers. 3 of the alien entities were destroyed immediately, their strange structures shattering into fragments. The others responded with frightening speed, abandoning the precursor key and turning their attention to the Aegis. "Evasive pattern Delta," ordered Chen as the ship began a series of maneuvers that seemed impossible for a vessel of its size. Defensive screens at maximum. What followed was unlike anything Tholos had ever witnessed. The human vessel danced through space with deadly grace, its weapons firing in precisely calculated patterns, while its defenses repelled the strange energies projected by the Void Reavers. The bridge crew worked in near-silent coordination, their neural interfaces allowing them to react with machine-like efficiency. Despite the Aegis' impressive capabilities, the sheer number of Void Reavers began to tell. Energy blasts penetrated the outer shields, scoring hits along the armored hull. "Port shields at 30%, reported an officer. "Hull breach on Deck 7. Containment fields holding." Chen's expression remained focused. "Initiate Sunfire protocol." Around them, the ship's lighting dimmed as power was diverted to some unknown system. A low hum built throughout the vessel, culminating in a flash of light so intense that even the viewscreen's filters barely contained it. A sphere of golden energy expanded from the Aegis, engulfing several of the closest Void Reavers. When it dissipated, nothing remained of them but scattered particles. "Remaining hostiles are retreating," announced the tactical officer. "They're regrouping near the asteroid field." "They'll be back," Chen said, her voice tinged with fatigue. That wasn't a victory, just a respite. Tholos stared at the human captain, seeing her and her species in an entirely new light. How did your kind become such formidable warriors?" Chen's gaze met his. "The same way any species survives, Ambassador. We adapted to our reality. Now let's use this time wisely. We need to discuss how we're going to destroy that precursor key before more Reavers arrive." Alliance forged in fire. Aboard the Eternal Harmony, the Muriel Scientific Council had gathered in the central chamber, their skin displaying a mosaic of troubled colors as they processed the events they had witnessed. Ambassador Tholos stood before them, alongside Captain Chen, who had agreed to explain humanity's knowledge of the Void Reavers. "Your species hid its military nature from the galactic community," accused Chief Counselor Varen, his skin flashing accusatory crimson. "The United Earth Alliance presented itself as peaceful explorers and traders." "We are explorers and traders," Chen replied calmly. "We're also survivors. Humanity doesn't compartmentalize its identity the way the Muriel do. Our history taught us that peace is precious precisely because it must be defended." "But warships of such magnitude," began another counselor. "Are necessary," finished Chen. "The galaxy isn't the harmonious playground the Muriel have experienced. You've been fortunate to evolve in regions where aggressive species were primitive enough to avoid with diplomatic maneuvering. Humanity wasn't so lucky." Tholos raised 2 of his hands in a calming gesture. "Captain Chen, perhaps you could explain how humans came to know of these Void Reavers and precursor keys." Chen activated a holographic display, showing images of a devastated human colony. The scenes of destruction silenced the council chamber. "Proxima Centauri II, our first extrasolar colony. Population 17,342. In 2157, they activated what they thought was an ancient power source discovered beneath the surface of the planet. It was a precursor key. She paused, the memory clearly painful. When our response ships arrived 2 weeks later, they found no survivors. What they did find were the Void Reavers, still harvesting organic material from the planet. The images shifted to show the strange, asymmetrical entities they had faced earlier. We lost 3 ships before we even understood what we were fighting. But humans are stubborn. We studied, adapted, and developed countermeasures. That was 70 years ago. Since then, we've destroyed 17 precursor keys and established early warning systems throughout explored space. Yet you never shared this information with other species during first contact, noted Pholus. Would you have believed us? Chen asked simply. Or would you have seen us as paranoid warmongers, letting the trauma of one incident define our species? We chose to establish relationships based on our shared values: exploration, knowledge, trade, while maintaining our vigilance separately. Before the discussion could continue, an alert sounded from both ships. The tactical officer from the Aegis appeared on a communication screen. Captain, multiple subspace disturbances forming. The Reavers are returning, and they've brought reinforcements. Sensors indicate over 60 entities approaching. Chen's expression hardened. Time to arrival. Approximately 90 minutes. Return to the ship immediately, she ordered, then turned to the Miriel Council. You have a choice to make. We can try to outrun them, but they'll track the energy signature your ship absorbed from the precursor key. Alternatively, we can make a stand and destroy the key, removing their primary objective. With just 1 ship against 60, asked Varen incredulously. That seems like suicide. Not necessarily, said Pholus, his scientific mind racing. Captain, your weapons were effective against the Reavers, but limited by power constraints, correct? Chen nodded. The Sunfire Protocol depletes our reserves. We couldn't deploy it more than twice more without risking core stability. What if, Pholus continued, his skin shifting to the deep blue of inspiration, we could amplify your weapon systems using Miriel harmonic technology. Our ships are designed to channel and redistribute energy in ways yours cannot. For the first time, genuine surprise showed on Chen's face. You're suggesting we combine our technologies. That's never been attempted between our species. Necessity breeds innovation, replied Pholus, deliberately echoing the human philosophy. And while the Miriel may have evolved beyond warfare, we are still masters of energy manipulation. Over the next hour, a frantic collaboration unfolded between the human tactical engineers and Miriel scientists. The Aegis was temporarily docked with the Eternal Harmony, allowing for direct integration of key systems. Your crystalline focusing arrays are remarkable, admitted the human chief engineer as they worked. With these connected to our plasma emitters, we could increase output by 300% without additional power consumption. Meanwhile, Chen and Pholus developed a strategy that leveraged both species' strengths. The Miriel ship's transparent hull actually gives us an advantage, Chen explained over a tactical display. If we position it here, its crystalline structure will refract our defensive screens, creating a false target profile that will confuse the Reaver's targeting systems. Pholus nodded. And if we channel the energy pulses from the precursor key itself through our harmonic resonators, we could potentially create a feedback loop that would destabilize it from within, destroying the key and possibly a significant number of Reavers in the process, finished Chen with approval. Ambassador, for a pacifist, you have a remarkably strategic mind. Peace doesn't equal naivety, Captain. The Miriel chose to abandon warfare, but we still understand its principles. As the Void Reavers approached, the integrated human Miriel defense was ready. The Eternal Harmony's engine core had been modified to serve as an amplifier for the Aegis weapons, while its crystalline hull sections had been reconfigured to form a complex refraction pattern for the defensive screens. On the bridge of the Aegis, now staffed by both human and Miriel operators, Captain Chen addressed the combined crews. What we attempt today has never been done before. Not just this tactical approach, but true cooperation between our species in the face of a common enemy. The Void Reavers consume without thought, exist without purpose beyond replication. They are the antithesis of both human drive and Miriel harmony. Today, we prove that diversity of approach is strength, not weakness. Folos, standing beside her, added, "Today, the Miriel remember that sometimes peace must be protected with strength. We are grateful for the human shield that stands between innocence and destruction." The tactical display lit up with dozens of contacts as the Void Reavers emerged from subspace. They were more numerous and larger than before, as if the initial force had been merely scouts. "They've adapted," noted Chen grimly. "Look at the configuration of the lead vessels. They've added additional energy projectors, similar to what we used against them." "Adaptation goes both ways," replied Tholos. "Initiate harmonic resonance sequence." The eternal harmony began to pulse with waves of energy that flowed into and through the Aegis weapon systems. As the Void Reavers approached, they encountered not two separate vessels, but what appeared to their sensors as a complex energy matrix, shifting and changing too rapidly to target effectively. "First wave approaching," announced the tactical officer. "Firing solutions ready." "Execute," ordered Chen. The combined vessels released synchronous bursts of energy, unlike anything either species had created before. Where human weapons were direct and devastating, the Miriel influence added complexity and persistence. The energy patterns didn't simply strike the Reavers. They enveloped them, disrupting their strange biology on a fundamental level. 7 Reavers disintegrated immediately. Others began to move erratically, as if their controlling intelligence had been scrambled. "It's working," exclaimed a Miriel scientist. "The harmonic disruption is affecting their neural networks." But the Void Reavers were nothing if not adaptable. The surviving entities quickly reorganized, forming a protective lattice around several larger vessels. They resumed their approach, now moving to surround the human Miriel position. "They're attempting to neutralize our firing arcs," observed Chen. "Prepare for close engagement." The battle intensified as the Reavers closed in. Despite the enhanced weapons, the sheer number of enemies began to tell. Energy blasts penetrated the defensive screens, damaging both vessels. Emergency teams raced to contain breaches and reroute power. "Hull integrity at 62%, reported a human officer. Miriel vessel showing structural stress along the primary axis. Tholos studied the tactical display, noting the Reavers' pattern of attack. They're avoiding direct confrontation with the precursor key. It has value to them beyond simple activation. Chen's eyes narrowed in realization. They're trying to capture it intact. That's why they're not using their most destructive capabilities. She turned to Tholos. "Can your harmonics team reverse the frequency? Instead of trying to destroy the key from here, can we make it attract the Reavers more strongly?" A trap. Tholos understood immediately. Yes, we can modify the resonance pattern. But we would need to get much closer to the key. "That's exactly what we'll do," said Chen. "All hands, prepare for emergency maneuvers. We're going to make a run directly for the precursor key." The combined vessels broke through the Reaver formation in a burst of speed that caught the entities unprepared. As they approached the ancient artifact, the Miriel scientists intensified the harmonic resonance, now calibrated to mimic the key's activation signal, but at exponentially higher power. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Void Reavers abandoned their tactical formation and pursued, drawn by an irresistible signal that promised abundant resources. As they converged on the human Miriel position surrounding the key, Chen gave the final order. "Initiate Sunfire Protocol. Maximum dispersal. Target the key itself." The Aegis channeled every ounce of remaining power into its ultimate weapon, now amplified by Miriel harmonic technology. A sphere of golden energy expanded outward, engulfing both the precursor key and the converging Void Reavers. For a moment, space itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the key began to fracture, lines of ancient energy escaping from its crystalline structure. The void reavers caught in the sunfire field began to disintegrate, but not before the key itself collapsed in a catastrophic implosion. The resulting shockwave slammed into the combined vessels, sending them tumbling away from the blast zone. Emergency systems engaged automatically, preventing total destruction, but not before significant damage was sustained. When the sensors finally cleared, not a single void reaver remained. The precursor key had been reduced to scattered atoms, its threat permanently neutralized. On the damaged bridge of the Aegis, Captain Chen pulled herself from the deck, helping a fallen Miriel scientist to his feet. "Status report," she called. "Both vessels intact but severely damaged," came the reply. "Life support stable. No pursuit detected." Chen turned to find Tholos approaching, his skin now pulsing with a color she hadn't seen before, a deep, resonant gold that seemed to reflect the sunfire itself. "It seems, Captain Chen, that the Miriel have much to learn from humanity," he said. "We had forgotten that there are forces in the universe that cannot be reasoned with, only confronted. And perhaps humans have something to learn from the Miriel," she replied. "Your harmonic technology, your emphasis on cooperation rather than domination, these are strengths we could incorporate." Tholos extended all four of his hands in a gesture of profound respect. "When the Miriel Concord arrives, I will advocate for a formal alliance with the United Earth Alliance. Our species are stronger together than apart." Chen accepted the gesture, grasping each hand in turn. "I believe our respective leaders will find much to discuss. The Void Reavers aren't the only threat in the galaxy, Ambassador. But today proves that diversity of approach can overcome challenges that neither of us could face alone." As repair teams from both species worked side by side to restore the damaged vessels, a new understanding began to emerge, one that recognized that true peace came not from the absence of strength, but from its judicious application in defense of shared values. Humanity's warrior spirit and the Miriel's harmonious philosophy were not contradictions but complements, each incomplete without the other. The stars looked different to Tholos now, their light carrying both promise and warning. The galaxy was more dangerous than the Miriel had believed, but they were no longer facing that danger alone.